When we think about the mysteries hidden behind the countless stone exhibits of museums, there's a feeling that behind ancient statues and sculptural images lies something more than just works of art. Why do these ancient figures, reverently preserving their original mystique, seem to know something invisible to the ordinary person? What made them be taken out of temples as if hiding their powerful energy from outsiders? And what secrets did those who perceived these statues, not merely as objects of art, but as keys to long forgotten stories, conceal? Today, we will attempt to look behind the veil of time and uncover what has remained invisible to the naked eye for centuries. This story is about ancient symbols, hidden meanings, and hypotheses about the possibility of the existence of real Olympian gods, about why statues of these legendary deities were often removed from temples, and what they might have signified to ancient peoples. Stay with us, as there is much interesting ahead. Greetings. Dawn has broken, and today we will explore the fascinating world of history and mysteries. Imagine this. In one of the halls of the Hermitage, there is a remarkable statue, Jupiter. It remains a true enigma for historians and enthusiasts of antiquity. According to legend, this sculpture was not acquired by Emperor Alexander II as a typical depiction of a Roman deity, but was most likely brought from the temple complex now known as St. Isaac's Cathedral. Originally, this building served as a temple of Jupiter, the god of thunder and sky, the supreme deity of the ancient Romans. It is interesting to note the name of this religious structure. In old texts written without modern conventions, the word Jupiter sometimes appears as pator, literally translated as father, the father god. In various manifestations, this deity was called by different names: Sovov, El, or less frequently, as a symbol of love and wisdom. This statue is like a small door into the past, helping us see history differently, to glimpse what lies behind the uplifting atmosphere of the museum, beyond textbooks and canonical knowledge. Many believe that this sculpture is of ancient Roman origin. However, careful examination reveals that metal was added to it much later, during the reign of Peter the Great. Such intervention indicates that the figure could have existed long before our current understanding and was partially modified to preserve or convey certain sacred meanings. One can imagine the original ancient statue coming to life, transforming into part of Jupiter's temple, and later into the majestic St. Isaac's Cathedral. There is a hypothesis that this statue was brought here even before the Great Flood, around the 15th century, or perhaps even earlier. A major ancient city, possibly Veliky Novgorod, once stood on the site of the modern city, almost entirely buried beneath centuries of dirt and sediments. In these hidden layers, among ancient remnants and ruins, mysterious traces of a bygone civilization have been preserved, which once thrived on this land. Time and the flow of history buried them under many meters of soil, yet inside the statue itself, the frozen signs of that era still remain, like a tool left behind by a vanished civilization. In the 15th century, when converted to the modern calendar, these ancient ruins were discovered. Not without the intervention of the earliest Russian princes and rulers, a new city was built from bricks taken from these excavations, where temples with 4 entrances resembled ancient Roman and Olympic shrines. The newly erected structures were dedicated to gods worshipped even in antiquity and symbolized a link between the past and the present. Perhaps it was during this period, when the city was reborn from ruins, that the secrets of ancient relics and statues began to acquire new meaning, as a bridge between eras, as a key to understanding long-extinct civilizations and their beliefs connected to Olympic gods and their power. Inside this ancient site stood not only new statues created in the current era, but also old ones excavated right here, in the heart of the city. Today, we can observe these ancient images in the exhibits of museums in St. Petersburg, where they evoke a sense of touching the distant past. The artificial white marble from which these figures were made serves as clear evidence that they were not imported from the Mediterranean, as is often the case with ancient artifacts. It was this material, used by successive rulers such as Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, that endowed the statues with superb strength and durability, allowing them to be preserved for centuries. They seem to hold within themselves the spirit of a forgotten great civilization, as if guarding the city and holding the secrets of bygone eras, reminding us of a time when these gods ruled the land. Look at the figure of Peter. This is not just a simple statue, but a true hybrid of eras and materials into which it was crafted, uniting them into a single whole. Likely among these ancient images, there's also a figure excavated directly in St. Petersburg, in the same places that may once have housed an ancient temple. That temple was later transformed into St. Isaac's Cathedral. Amazingly, its official founding year is 1858, yet archaeological findings indicate that its origins are much older, dating back to the 16th century. St. Isaac's Cathedral, as it is now called, was built on the ruins of an ancient structure, part of which is now preserved on Alginsko Island in Peterhof. The columns adorning the statues on the facade seem to preserve the breath of a distant time, reminding us of the strength and mysteries that still reside within them and continue to shroud this city. Examining the ancient statues depicted in these photographs, one can easily identify almost all Olympic gods. Here are Hercules, Apollo, and of course, Jupiter, the supreme god of ancient mythology. What is particularly interesting is that these temples lack the usual Christian altar and iconostasis that separate the sanctuary. If these images were truly taken in 1947, we would likely see remnants of such an altar, but they are absent here. This suggests that the photos were taken at a time when the altar had not yet been installed or its installation was not yet complete. During the reign of Alexander III in the 1880s, the altar could very well have already occupied its place, and traces of its existence would remain in photographs, but they seem to be missing here. These small details give these photographs particular significance, as if we are looking into that mysterious period when the ancient gods still held their space, and Christian church rites had not yet fully filled it, bringing their changes and innovations. This history is quite rich in events and insights, but it is precisely through this that one can understand how modern Orthodox Christianity, as well as other teachings of the Semitic tradition, continue to preserve threads of the ancient primordial faith. That single faith in the one God the Father, which existed long before the divergence of religious paths. Delving into the past, one involuntarily feels that behind every temple, behind every icon, are hidden the mysteries of eras that we are only beginning to understand and interpret. Let us focus on the fact that religion has always been not only a system of belief in the supernatural, but also an idea of higher ideals, a complete opposite to a purely materialistic view of the world. This theme is complex and multi-layered. However, often the history of religions can be reconstructed not only from texts, but also from the architecture of preserved temples, since most civil buildings nowadays have either been completely rebuilt or disappeared without a trace. Khrushchev-era panel houses and new office centers do not carry the historical memory contained within ancient sanctuaries. For example, the Isakovsky Cathedral, erected in the 15th century, likely had 4 entrances symbolizing the 4 corners of the world and served as a temple of a unified faith. It housed statues of Roman gods, among which Jupiter stood out particularly, the Father God, the supreme deity of the Roman pantheon. Over time, his image transformed and became associated with the Father God, and his statue could gradually acquire features of a kind of pantocrator. In sculptures of that time, such as the pose of Lovell, images connecting different deities into a single system of symbols were often present. All of this seems complex and ambiguous, but these details help to lift the veil over the image of ancient antiquity and its interfaith religion, rich with multiple layers of symbolism. According to one hypothesis, the Kazan Cathedral was originally conceived as a temple of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. Part 4 of 7. His plan included a circular outer colonnade that was supposed to surround the structure, creating the effect of personifying a ring encompassing the temple. Today, we only see a part of this colonnade, a half circle, suggesting the missing architectural details. Inside this temple, according to historical sources, statues of various gods and heroes once stood, allegedly led by Venus. Jupiter, the father god, was represented by a statue that emphasized her innate connection to the earth goddess through kinship and mythological ties, as Venus was considered his daughter. The official version states that, with the arrival of Christianity in the Roman Empire, around the 3rd century AD, statues and idols of many Roman gods were immediately removed from the temples to eliminate pagan cults. However, archaeological findings show that these statues persisted almost until the mid-19th century and only disappeared after inspections and the reorganization of religious practices. On one of the medals preserved to this day, a coronation ritual is depicted: an altar, sacrifice table, smoke, a god with a crown, and a shining scepter resembling a cross. Interestingly, crosses do not appear elsewhere in the imagery, and the profile of Catherine, depicted on this medal, is executed in an antique style, raising questions. Who is shown on the medal? A king or a god? Why did the symbols of antiquity persist in culture and rituals for so long? What did the smoke over the altar signify? Was it a secret ritual or a powerful symbol of authority? Additionally, the coexistence and intertwining of scenes involving ancient gods and Christian episodes are quite intriguing. This is not paradoxical, since significant historical events in antiquity, such as the emergence of Christianity, truly became transformative moments that impacted the entire cultural and religious system of that era. This symbiosis of images indicates that for many centuries, these two worlds, an ancient pagan religion and the new Christian faith, existed inseparably, and their interaction left noticeable traces in symbolism, culture, and monuments of bygone eras. Their widespread fame played a significant role in shaping a special place for them within ancient Greek and Roman cosmologies, a mythological system explaining the origin and structure of the universe. After the unifying faith in one God, formed at the dawn of religious concepts, began to disintegrate, Christian events and ideas started to stand out among other traditional beliefs, transcending the general ancient context. This was especially evident in art and monuments of the period. For example, the statue of an emperor who ruled in Samaria in the early 2nd century AD, made of marble, represents a genuine work of ancient craftsmanship. This sculpture is not a rare imported piece, but a local find, a testament that such images were created in antiquity itself, underscoring their authenticity and historical value. On the chest of this statue, a unique symbol stands out: a Semitic image composed of wings, associated both with an eagle and an angel, indicating a complex intertwining of different cultural and religious elements. The figure's face, with horns, reminiscent of a god embodying a dual nature, appears as a blend of a bull and a human. In a modern context, this is often linked to the figure of Dionysus, the god of wine, or, according to one hypothesis, to the manifestation of Yahweh, a deity from Jewish religions. Such tetragonal symbolism, the image divided into 4 parts or archetypes, reveals an astonishing connection between religion, astrology, psychology, and mystical aspects of ancient beliefs. In ancient texts, Yahweh is depicted as a two-faced Janus, with 2 faces, one human, kind, and earthly, and the other goat-like, wild, and mystical. The symbolism of Dionysus, associated with the image of a bull, adding complexity to the perception of this divine entity, and the wings on the statue, symbolic of his connection to the supreme gods of Olympus, such as Zeus or Jupiter. emphasize his divine nature and cosmic ties. Interestingly, a transition is linked to the name El Baal, which, according to research, was not always widely published, but is evident as an important part of ancient religious evolution. The 2nd century Roman emperor, whose sculpture is the focus of attention, indicated that the figure of Baal was venerated in Rome, suggesting that elements borrowed from Near Eastern cults were present in Roman religious tradition. The ancient civilization that thrived around the Mediterranean until the Middle Ages experienced two major catastrophes that transformed its face. The first, in 1342 AD, became a turning point, dividing ancient worldviews into early Greece and the later stages of Rome's development. The second catastrophe, spanning from the 16th to the 17th century and into 1642, destroyed much of the cultural heritage and became a starting point for the emergence of new religions based on Abrahamic traditions. The history of antiquity turned out to be much shorter than commonly assumed, hiding many mystical secrets waiting to be uncovered. The question of why symbols of ancient gods found echoes in Christianity and other monotheistic religions remains relevant. These images continue to live on, passed down from generation to generation. Could the modern world merely be a reverberation of a vanished civilization, where gods, legends, and myths are preserved as artifacts and mythological stories? It is particularly interesting to focus on the so-called Hall of Jupiter, associated with the late antiquity period. It is there that images of gods, known to us as Zeus among the Greeks and Jupiter among the Romans, were preserved, essentially the same deity, only with different names and cultural nuances. Part 6 of 7. Ancient Greece in its early period depicted its gods with distinctive features, straight noses and highly detailed faces, while in later periods, particularly among the Romans, these features became more aligned with modern perceptions. These changes in representations are connected with the artificial growth and development of anthropogenesis, the process through which the forms of the human body and face became closer to current standards through numerous cultural and technological transformations. The history of the shifting cultural centers across Europe is closely linked to the transfer of power and civilizational restructuring. For example, during the fall of ancient Greece and the rise of Rome, profound changes occurred that replaced one cultural order with another. This transition took place around the 14th century, marking a significant point in human history, leaving an imprint on subsequent eras up to the present day. The legacy of the ancient civilization, despite destruction and displacements, has been preserved and transmitted to future generations, forming the foundation for the development of new cultures and knowledge. Simultaneously, the world experienced endless changes related to internal crises, religious revolutions, and social upheavals. These events also influenced physical features of people, who over time acquired new characteristics. After all, not only ideas and beliefs changed, but also the material attributes of human beings, explained by complex historical transformations. Thus, transformations in the human form are not merely the result of natural evolution, as we often think, but rather the outcome of intervention by wiser and more powerful forces. Many have wondered, is there a secret behind the ancient statues, in which figures of mysterious beings are captured? Who was responsible for the creation of the human form on Earth? Attention should be paid to ancient knowledge and myths related to hierarchies, such as those outlined in the ancient poem Giants. From such stories, it is clear that in early epochs, humans, and especially giants, were perceived as divine beings, endowed with power and wisdom. Giants were often associated with the royal class, while ordinary people were created on a large scale through artificial intervention called anthropogenesis. This industrial ethnogenesis, the process of artificially forming the human race, can be traced back in history even before our era and into modern times. The question of who was behind this and why mass human types were created remains one of the most mysterious. After all, myths feature characters, the children of Poseidon, Tritons, mermaids, and Milizines with two tails. According to legends, they lived in castles, married kings, and participated in numerous plots related to the destinies of humans and gods. A special place is occupied by the story of Helles, Messiah and intermediary between worlds. It is considered the offspring of the union between the sea goddess Phaethida and the earthly Peleus, serving as an example of how higher beings transform into intelligent humans by adopting an earthly form. Such legends often feature hybrid creatures, centaurs and fauns, combining goat and human traits, sharp ears, noticeable hairiness, and strange pouches located on their necks. These beings, connected to humans, gave rise to tall hybrids endowed with unusual qualities and abilities, supporting the theory of ancient experiments aimed at creating new species or races. Thus, the mysterious history of human emergence and development on Earth is full of enigmas involving interventions by higher powers, mystical creatures, and legendary events. These accounts suggest that our origins are not merely the result of natural evolution, but are connected to complex and often hidden processes regulated by powerful ancient structures whose roles remain a mystery to modern researchers even today.